More attacks in Ukraine, with large numbers of Russian forces now just 15 miles from the centre of the capital. Barricades on the outskirts of Kyiv, where they're preparing for any assault, possibly within days. We hear from the young Ukrainian recruits at the checkpoints that they'll be defending.
I feel a bit scared because no one wants to die, even if it's for your country.
The diplomacy continues. French and German leaders spend over an hour on the phone with Vladimir Putin, asking for an immediate ceasefire. In Moscow, we speak to Russians who support the invasion of Ukraine and hear their reasons for doing so. There's been intense fighting on the northwestern outskirts of the Ukrainian capital amid fears that Moscow may be preparing an assault on Kyiv, as well as trying to encircle it. British intelligence says the bulk of Russian forces are within 15 miles of the centre. The latest information about Russian positions is shown here in red. Outside the capital, the cities of Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv and Mariupol continue to be shelled. Phone talks took place today between France's President Emmanuel Macron, Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Our first report tonight is from Jeremy Bowen on the outskirts of Kyiv.
Pictures of Russian forces, time and place indeterminate, emerge from their side. Among their potential targets here in Kyiv, no one knows their precise orders, but they're assuming an attack is coming. On the Ukrainian side, they're trying to make checkpoints into real obstacles. The professionals are a few miles closer to the Russians. The soldiers here are all volunteers, but they are still expected to fight, even with only a few days' training. Just over a week ago, I met two university friends, Maxim, aged 19, and Dmitro, 18, as they signed up in Kyiv. What do you study?
I'm studying economy.
And I'm studying biology.
Most of the recruits that day were about the same age, making jokes to hide their nerves. When they lined up outside, they looked as if they were off to a festival, except for the guns. Now Dmitro and Maxim have been given uniforms, 3 days training, and they're facing the Russians.
Pretty get used to my gun. I learned how to shoot and like act in the battle. Also, many other things that will be very crucial during the fight with some Russians.
I feel much more confident than I was before, because we get enough knowledge in tactics.
Do you think the battle is coming for Kyiv?
Yeah, it's definitely possible, but we just have to stop them here in Brovary, because if they get to Kyiv, this war probably might be over.
What do your parents think about what you're doing?
Mom, I'm on the war, I'm fighting with the gun in my hands, and she said, oh, Maxim,
Nice joke.
don't joke with your mother, it's war. Just sit in the shelter and do your work, volunteer or do something else.
Do you feel scared?
Not much, but it's human nature to feel scared, and of course deeply in my soul I feel a bit scared because no one wants to die, even if it's for your country. So death is not an option for us.
For now, they're on the checkpoint. If the Russians come, they'll be firing out of a trench in the war's key battle. War always has a political as well as a military dimension. While President Zelensky and his government are here in Kyiv, no one can say that they've been defeated, even if they're losing territory elsewhere. At the same time, President Putin cannot claim victory in this war if his men can't take this city. Everyone here is waiting. Soldiers, civilians in and out of uniform, and Maxim and Dmitro. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Kyiv.
President Zelensky says about 1,300 Ukrainian troops have been killed since the start of Russia's invasion. He told journalists in Kyiv that far larger numbers of Russian soldiers had died, perhaps 10 times as many, but those figures can't be verified. As Russian forces continue to shell Kyiv, Mr. Zelensky said that they have to destroy the capital and its population to occupy it. Our security correspondent Frank Gardner has this assessment of Russia's military strategy.
It looks like, and it feels like, the beginning of the end game, although who knows how long that's going to last. If we look at the map here on day 17, the red areas are where Russian forces have taken control. In the south, they continue to make advances. They're pushing to the northwest. In the north is where the real battle is going to be fought. That's for the capital, Kyiv, around here. Now, you remember that great big Russian armoured column that was stuck for days north of the capital? Most of that is redeployed into the forests to the northwest, moving their artillery and rocket systems within range of the capital, looking to encircle it. If President Putin can't take Kyiv, then his war has failed. And that appears to be what he's determined to do, is to capture the capital. But it's not going to be an easy battle. And who knows when that assault is actually going to begin. A direct hit on a Russian armoured column as it advances on the capital, Kyiv. Western-supplied anti-tank weapons have slowed the Russian advance, but they haven't stopped it. In the air, Russian warplanes remain wary of Ukraine's air defences, but they have the advantage of numbers on their side. The latest Pentagon assessment is that the Russian Air Force is flying an average of 200 missions a day, compared to just 10 for the Ukrainians. Now, some of those Russian sorties don't even need to cross into Ukrainian airspace. They can fire their cruise missiles from inside Russian territory. This is what they're up against: Western-supplied missile systems, plus some old Soviet-era stock. The Ukrainians have shot down a number of Russian helicopters and planes. Russia has threatened to start targeting the supply of Western weaponry. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has dismissed fears that some of these weapons could end up with criminals and terrorists. We believe that risk is worth taking, says a US defense official, because the Ukrainians are fighting so skillfully with the tools at their disposal, and they're using them so creatively. President Putin has made it clear what he intends to do with any anti-aircraft missiles his forces capture from the Ukrainians. I support the possibility, he says, of giving these to the military units of the Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics. Please do this. The Kremlin's position towards Ukraine has barely moved since the day this invasion began 2.5 weeks ago. This war can stop when you want it to. You just need to lay down your arms, surrender, give in to all our demands, and forget about being a part of Western Europe. Frank Gardner, BBC News.
In Russia, the Kremlin continues to try to control its narrative for the Russian public about what it calls a special military operation. In the last 3 weeks, thousands of people have been detained for protesting against the war, but there is strong support among some for the reassertion of Russia's influence in the region. Our Moscow correspondent Caroline Davies reports.
Scroll through Russian-run social media, and these are the sorts of videos you might see. Upbeat Russian patriotism as the country becomes more isolated. In Russia, even cheese can be political. The owner of this factory posted a video on social media praising President Putin. His business wouldn't exist if the Russian leader hadn't put sanctions on European cheese. Some are already bound economically to the Kremlin's success.
In 2011, I was going out with a poster saying, "Putin, go away." I didn't support the president then. I was thinking our country was going the wrong way. But in 2014, he returned us Crimea, started protecting Russian products, started supporting agriculture. I changed my mind and started supporting him.
But signs of support don't only exist on screens.
Well, since we've been driving around the outskirts of Moscow, we've now seen several vehicles with Z markings on. Some of them have just been drawn in the dirt on the back of them. Others have been marked in tape. All of them a sign of support for the Russian army in Ukraine.
The letter Z, which first appeared on the side of Russian military vehicles, is now evident across Russia, from filmed candlelit gatherings to some buses and trams, like here in suburban Moscow. I support this, says Vyacheslav. It's our country, it's our army. I'm positive about this, says Ina. We must support our own, regardless of who's right and who's wrong.
What's been really interesting speaking to people here is how often the same expressions come up, the sort of expressions you quite often see on social media as hashtags or being said on the state media too. It's also worth saying that there were people here who said that they didn't agree with the Z signs, but those people didn't want to go on camera.
And their propaganda.
Many who used to protest now only feel able to speak publicly once they've left the country. A few days ago, Mark and his family escaped to Nepal. He's tried to speak to loved ones in Russia about the conflict.
Many of my relatives were having doubts after we spoke to them. But later they watched TV again and told me, well, no, I don't think you're right. Well, I believe Putin, he's very powerful. There are enemies everywhere. I just can't understand how they can believe it, but they do. And if you tell someone the same thing over and over again, it becomes like truth.
As Russia shuts off independent media, there's less to challenge the Kremlin's narrative. And the patriotic drumbeat telling Russians to support President Putin is only getting louder. Caroline Davis, BBC News, Moscow.
Hello, good evening. Dramatic new pictures of Russian tanks apparently firing into a residential block of flats in Mariupol have provoked worldwide condemnation. A young mother whose child died in attacks on the city simply cried, "Who will bring back our children?" President Zelensky has accused Russia of using terrorist techniques after claiming the mayor of a town under Russian control was kidnapped. And as Russian forces close in on Kyiv, Mr. Zelensky said they'd have to kill every single person there before they can take the capital. From Ukraine, our correspondent Romilly Weeks reports.
The Z on its side marks this as a Russian tank. It reverses into position and fires. First hit appears to be a garage, then what's clearly a residential block. This is Mariupol, a city that's been under siege for 13 days. A city where all routes out are blocked. And women and children, the very young and the very old, are enduring this. The Russians say they're not targeting civilians. Tell that to the doctors here. Safe routes out have been promised and then withdrawn by Russia for over a week. For Anastasia, it's already too late. One of her children was killed last night. Cradling her surviving child, she pleads, "We don't know where to run to. Who will bring back our children? Who?" In Melitopol in the southeast, there were protests today after their mayor was kidnapped by Russian forces. In this CCTV footage, you can just see in the top of the shot the moment soldiers lead him away, his fate unknown. President Zelensky called it a crime, not just against Ukraine, but against democracy. In a concert hall in Lviv in the west, a vast volunteer effort is underway. 200 people a day signing up here to pack and deliver clothes, medical supplies and food for those who've fled from and those heading in to fight.
We are working with people who came from Kyiv, Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv, and they came to Lviv with nothing, really, and they need clothes, they need food.
As the attacks on Ukraine become more intense and more brutal, the need that centres like this are trying to supply is growing by the day. It's pretty remarkable witnessing this totally grassroots community effort. But as one woman told me, with what's happening to our country, we have no choice. There is no part of this vast country untouched by war. This, the aftermath of shelling just 30 minutes from the centre of Kyiv. As the capital braces, in the main square, they're playing the national anthem.
Romilly Weeks, ITV News in Ukraine.